Hi guys, my name's Mark Hare. This is We Love Betting. It's Friday morning at 7 a.m. I'm up early because it's a Six Nations weekend. Week 3 is rolling around, starting on Friday night as Wales take on France in Cardiff. I'm going to flip the fixtures actually and start with Saturday evening's game first as England take on Ireland at Twickenham. For the sixth year in 7 now, England have started their Six Nations campaign with back-to-back victories. Next up, of course, is this game in Twickenham. Sell-out crowd. Eddie Jones' first game in front of his home fans as well. Project Jones, it's still a bit of a work in progress, but very encouraging signs across their first two games. Neither Scotland nor Italy managed to score a try against the Red Rose, reduced the both teams to just 9 points apiece, which is very impressive. They've won 4 of the last 5 games against Ireland, 2, and they've scored more points, 55 in total so far in the tournament, than Ireland's matches have managed in total, which is 51 in their 2 games. So they'll be very confident in claiming a third victory here and potentially setting up a Grand Slam game against Wales or France, depending on how that game goes on Friday night. I thought they were very unflustered, very cool, very calm, very confident against Italy and Scotland, coming to the fore in that last half hour of both games. The options available to them on the bench is really obviously helping them too in the tight battles when they're slugging it out. And I think, Ireland must be looking with enviable eyes over England's playing resources, especially with the injuries they're suffering. Because Ireland would normally turn up to Twickenham with a fair amount of confidence and swagger and belief, but it just doesn't seem to be there this season, and quite rightly so. That fearlessness has probably been replaced by trepidation this weekend, because a terrible injury crisis has only just gotten worse as the tournament's progressed. I thought Ireland were the better team against France, especially in the first half, but failed to make that possession and territory count in terrible conditions, and eventually that 6-day turnaround and the tournament-ending injuries to Sean O'Brien, Mike McCarthy, Dave Carney, and Johnny Sexton getting aggressively targeted by the French seemed to come into, obviously went against them eventually as the game slipped away from him in the final 15 minutes. O'Brien's absence is going to be very, very keenly felt. Joe Schmidt likes to play a confrontational, aggressive, front football kind of game, similar to what Wales play, but just not so aggressively, I guess. But O'Brien's manpower and ability to get over the gain line is going to be missed, especially against a very organised English defence. Ireland, very frustrating just to have a point on the board, considering they were 13 points up against a wasteful Welsh team, and also in the lead against a very poor French side too. So the title defence is in tatters. They're in a transitional phase, and I think they're just going to be hoping to be competitive here, keep the scoreline close, and potentially try and nick a win. They don't score enough tries, though, for me to consider them serious dangers to England. I think the scoreline will be tight, though. For the first time, actually, since 1998, in the wooden spoon year of Ireland started their tournament without 2 victories. I think it's going to be 3 coming into this game now. The last 3 meetings have just produced 3 tries. Not since 2011's showdown in Dublin has this contest featured 3 tries or more, so it's going to be very tight. 5 of the 6 games in the Six Nations so far have been settled by a winning margin of 7 points or fewer. I think this one's going to follow a similar pattern too. England to triumph by 1 to 12 points is 6-4 at Sky Bet, and I think that's the bet on Saturday evening. Moving on to Scotland-Italy, or Italy-Scotland in Rome on Saturday at 2:25. Sadly familiar tale, I think, with these two. They both come into this game in week 3 without a point on the board and potentially scrapping out to see who's going to avoid the wooden spoon. For the Scots, it's quite a similar and painful pattern, really, how things are going. They're now 9 games without a win, or 9 defeats on the trot in the Six Nations. Their worst run of results in the Championship since 1955, despite playing some good rugby. Incredibly, a third of their starting 15 against the Welsh last time out hadn't experienced a Six Nations win. But 6 of those 9 defeats have been by 7 points or fewer. It's been really fine margins, and Vern Cotton's going to be really hoping to amend that record in the Eternal City this weekend. It's their only great chance to sort of get a victory so far in the tournament. I thought they performed pretty well against in Cardiff against the Welsh. TMO decision going against them, but against England, I thought they weren't clinical enough in possession, edged out in a real tight battle. As I say, we've sort of been here before with Scotland, so. Anyway, they've only won 1 of the last 13 away games in the Six Nations since 2010. Cotter's brought in Tim Visser against the wing, but it's in the pack. I think they need to tweak things. They've lost 6 of their 28 9-outs, which is by far away the worst record in the Six Nations. Italy, they should have beaten the French, a very poor French team in Paris. I thought they competed very well against England for 50 minutes. Encouraging signs in both games, especially the spinal side of 8, 9, 10. and even Campagnaro at 13-2 performed well above expectations. I mean, I had them down to be written off completely as no hopers in this competition, considering the injuries and unavailable players. Splash Affair too. They comfortably covered that handicap in Paris and looked on course to do just that against England as well after 50 minutes. So with 5 wins from 8 home games against Scotland in Rome, they can't really be discounted in this game. Carlo Canna, fly halves, a big absentee. Veteran hooker though, Leonardo Gilardino will come in and into the front row, so I still think they could be quite competitive here. I've got to favour the Scots though. I've been backing them for nearly 2 years now to sort of turn this horrible slide around. 4 of the last 5 tests between these two have been decided by 4 points or fewer, so I think backing Scotland to win by 1 to 12 points again is the bet here. 6 to 4 with Sky Bet. Again, I'll go back to that statistic that 5 of the 6 games in the season's Six Nations have been settled by a converted try or fewer. So to Friday night then, Wales and France take their 200% records to Cardiff. The Six Nations resumes under the lights. The Dragons chalked up at 3 to 10 favourites here. Can't really argue with those odds considering the performances of the two teams and Wales' home record coming into this game. They've beaten France in each of the last 4 meetings, only conceded 1 try in those, or in actually their last 5 meetings. Only Australia, New Zealand and Ireland have come to the Principality Stadium and won in the last 14, 10 wins in that time for Wales. I think they're real prime to come out of this game with another W. It's going to be a very bruising encounter. Warren Gatland's chosen Dan Lydiate at the flanker to come inside alongside Sam Warburton and Falatau. He knows it's going to be a real arm wrestle and a bit of a punishing encounter. So French love their aggressive rugby and they'll fancy it too. Wales, well, they've shown sort of flashes of quality and flair against Ireland and Scotland, not really clicked into gear. They've been very firm and fearless in defence, secure at the set piece, just lacking execution in the final third. They do tend to get better as the tournament progresses. They also rely on their fitness too to come good in the second half of matches, which they've proven in both games so far. Pretty loose at the start and end of both games against Scotland, but I thought it was quite good to see Jonathan Davis, Jamie Roberts and George North, their big power runners, perform pretty well, and Dan Biggar as well, orchestrating things from fly half. France, well, they've got 2 wins from 2. I don't really know how, because I think their luck's going to run out here in Cardiff. Survived that injury time. Sergio Parise dropped goal attempts in Paris when winning 23-21, and then they were the second best for large swaths of that game against Ireland a fortnight ago in terrible conditions. They're going away for the first time in the tournament, just 2 wins and 15 away from home, excluding the World Cup now. It's really, really grim, and the fascination of chopping and changing the lineup still seems to exist with 5 changes from Guy Noves this weekend. Maxime Machinot at scrum half should at least add a bit of tempo to their team. But unlike their Six Nations rivals, France have actually, their players have been in action in the top 14 last weekend. So they're actually getting a 6-day turnaround here on Friday night. We saw what that can happen with Ireland in Paris, sort of tiring in that second half. So I think they're going to possibly be quite competitive in the first half and then drop away in the second half. With that in mind, and the fact that Wales have only been ahead in 3 of the last 10 home games. So Wales have only been ahead in 3 of the last 10 games. 2 of those were against Fiji and Uruguay. So with that in mind, the flip-flop of France to be leading at half-time and Wales at full-time is 6 to 1. I think that's well worth a wee wager of Sky Bet. But ultimately, France, well, they've only covered the handicap in 3 of the last 20 Six Nations games. Wales, look, -7, that's definitely achievable for them. 5 of the 6 games, again, have been settled by that margin or less in this tournament. So I think I'd rather get the winning margin back on side here, which is 1 to 12 points. Wales at 6 to 4 with Sky Bet. All 3 winning margins are 6 to 4 with Sky Bet this weekend, which makes up treble at just under 15 to 1. Wales by 1 to 12, England by 1 to 12, and Scotland by 1 to 12. Plus France, Wales, and the flip-flop half-time, full-time at 6 to 1. Best of luck.